Hettel Damani and Suzanne Lund are part of the Nordea Responsible Investment team. They travel the world to evaluate companies on the ground.
A trip like this can add value to an investor because it allows you to see beyond their reports and understand the realities on the ground. It helps you understand what issues are actually material for the company and what their stakeholders think about them.
This is a preliminary visit by Hettel and Suzanne to establish if Antofagasta run their complex mining operation in a sustainable manner, and thus whether they are a good candidate for the STARS funds. Hettel and Suzanne travel to the Pelambres copper mine at 4,000 meters above sea level. The copper mine has been in operation for 16 years. It is 1.7 kilometers deep and 3.5 kilometers wide. Copper is an important component in global industry and an essential metal for both renewables and transportation in the low-carbon economy.
In solar, in wind, and generally in renewable energy, non-conventional renewable energy, copper is used as a transmitter of electricity, and therefore the wiring of a lot of these devices contains a lot of copper. Electrical cars is another good example.
We also want to understand the extent to which Antofagasta is ensuring that they have safe operations. It is critical for them to ensure that they not only continue their operations and reduce the number of disruptions.
Sustainability is very much intertwined with value creation in the long term. Value creation considered at large, not only from the point of view of the more direct economic benefits. So sustainability is very much wired into our organization, into the purposes that we have, the values that we sustain. The first one, I would say, is the safety of our people. We will not engage in an activity which poses risks that we cannot control on the safety side for our people, and we're very much into eradicating all serious incidents or accidents that could harm our people.
The general manager of the Pelambres mine, Robert Main Nichols, has no doubt about where their priorities lie.
If we have a fatal accident, all the rest means nothing. From the ethical and moral point of view, we are not allowed to take the life of anyone. From a business point of view, it is a good business to have a good safety results. We have 2 years with no fatalities. That it's very good. But this is a game that you start playing every day. You never end this game.
My impression of Antofagasta's approach to safety is that they have suffered setbacks and they've been very open and transparent about it. But this remains a top priority for the company, and they could show us concrete initiatives that are aiming to improve their safety performance. So we are on our way to the El Mauro tailings dam, and the dam has been the source of local community opposition.
A tailings dam contains the water spillage. It must be contained due to the residual materials from the copper recovery process. For villagers in the valley and for investors, it can be a risk if the dam is not secure.
Community opposition for extractives type projects has been increasing over recent years. And community engagement and community consent is extremely critical to ensure and establish and maintain a license to operate. Can you describe some of the challenges in terms of maintaining this tailings dam?
Temas ambientales, temas sociales, temas laborales. Es muy importante, las regulaciones son muy estrictas en eso, porque en los tranques de relave las cosas, si bien ocurren a un ritmo más o menos constante, nunca cesa, siempre está subiendo, ¿cierto? Y hay que estar trabajando de forma adelantada porque las obras demoran, etc.
Visiting El Mauro tailings dam was a real eye-opener. It really showed the scale of their operations in that area, and that Antofagasta is operating in a valley of 70,000 inhabitants. And should anything happen to that dam, I mean, the communities in the area can be significantly impacted.
One of the villages close to the tailings dam is Caimanes. Here, Antofagasta has met resistance and concerns. To address them, Antofagasta has employed community supervisors stationed at all communities within their areas of operation to establish a continuous dialogue between the company and the villagers.
Can you tell us a little bit about the agreement that's been made between the community in Caimanes and Los Pelambres?
El acuerdo que llamamos es parte de un proceso que duró un poco más de un año de conversaciones permanentes y sistemáticas con toda la comunidad, mediante asambleas abiertas, donde todo el mundo estaba convocado sin discriminación de postura frente a la compañía.
The people in Caimanes who oppose the project show their protest by flying a black flag outside their homes.
It was obvious seeing the black flags in Caimanes that there are some members that actually oppose Antofagasta's operations there. The company was actually at risk of having to demolish the El Mauro tailings dam, which would have been a significant cost, but they were able to mitigate this with their new approach to community engagement.
To the management, this is part of a long-term strategy.
I think we've moved very significantly from the way that community was engaged, in the past. I think if you think 10 or 15 years ago in the industry, and in Chile in particular, generally the community was engaged much more on a transactional basis. It was about solving specific issues or problem. I think now we're into a completely different dialogue. This is about building development which benefits both together, in the long term.
To address human rights issues, Antofagasta uses the guiding principles placed at the disposal of corporate entities by the Danish Institute for Human Rights. In Copenhagen, Denmark, Susanne Lund met with Allan Lerbjerg Jørgensen, who emphasizes that the responsibility lies not just with the companies.
The guiding principles, the responsibility to respect human rights, not to cause or contribute to adverse human rights impacts, also applies to an investor.
So would you go as far as to say that a social license to operate could be detrimental to a company's ability to stay in business?
There's no doubt it can have a very direct business consequence in the extractive sector. If you lose the social license to operate, that can mean delays that will cost you millions and millions of dollars if they are not solved.
2 hours by plane north of Pelambres, Antofagasta operates another mine in the Atacama Desert, one of the most arid places on Earth. Surprisingly, we see lots of water pouring into large basins. There is another aspect of Antofagasta's sustainability strategy. To address the extreme shortage of fresh water, Antofagasta uses raw seawater in 2 of their production facilities in northern Chile. The water is pumped to the high desert from the Pacific Ocean.
So I think this is a clear example of how Antofagasta is addressing the challenges of water security by using untreated seawater as opposed to fresh water. And this way they are ensuring that, one, they're not competing with the local community for access to water, but also they're ensuring that they have a long-term, or at least for the coming years, supply of water instead of relying on water rights, which the government isn't so freely giving.
However, using seawater in a high-altitude desert comes at a price, and the increased energy needed to pump the water is a sustainability issue that is yet to be addressed. Antofagasta has another way to accommodate the critical water shortage, which addresses the security issues at the tailing dam at the same time.
This is the salt that's crusted on top.
Is salt.
And underneath are the thickened tailings.
The salt crust on top of the tailings keeps the dust from dispersing. And in a pioneering technique, Antofagasta also extracts the water from the tailings and reuses it, leaving only the solids, which don't pose the same danger as a dam. Antofagasta expects this technique to become a regulatory requirement from the government in the near future.
So, I mean, it's fantastic that they've started with this approach, and it'll be interesting to see how they will replicate the thickened tailings approach across other sites.
Energy is also essential for mining. Here, Antofagasta has enlisted the ever-present sun as a collaborator.
La planta solar funciona básicamente concentrando los rayos del sol en estas superficies que vemos acá y que no vamos a tocar. En estas superficies que están acá colectan los rayos del sol y los concentran en estos tubos que están acá, que son unos cuerpos negros.
So have you been a first mover in applying this new technology?
Yes, that's a very important thing. This is the first in the whole industry, in the whole mining industry. This is the first solar plant application.
I think trips like this are unique. A very common approach that some investors take is to simply buy external ratings and research and base their decisions off of that, whereas we actually want to go on the ground and understand the local context, which we think gives us valuable insight.
If the company is approved by the responsible investment team, the insights gathered are passed on to the portfolio managers, who will then assess the opportunity.